Hello everyone, how's it going and welcome back to the channel. In the world of fountain pens, there are remarkably few piston fillers with gold nibs that are available for sale today. I'm talking about current models of fountain pens. There's of course the Pilot Custom Heritage 982, which I featured in the previous video. There is, and I don't have that pen, but dimensions are the same. This is actually an M200, but basically there is the M400 with the same dimensions as this pen. We'll just put that aside. And the last pen in that category of 14 karat gold nibbed piston fillers is actually the Lamy 2000. So you're actually talking about a field of 3 pens in this category of fountain pens. That's pretty remarkable to me, right? Seeing as there are so many other permutations of fountain pens, like there are many 14 karat gold nibbed, for example, fountain pens that have a converter, but there are so few that actually have that combination which I mentioned. Now, those of you who've been watching my channel for quite a while would know that I haven't featured this a Lamy 2000 on my channel before, and for good reason. The reason being it's not very affordable pen in the country where I live, which is in Singapore. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of the prices of a Lamy 2000 here in Singapore, it costs about $346.50 here, official retail price. And these pens are very rarely discounted. And in Singapore, the Lamy 2000 is only available in, I'm just trying to look at my notes, in extra fine, fine, and medium as standard, and these are the standard nib sizes. And looking at sites like Goulet Pens in the States, Lamy 2000 goes for $199, and it also comes with that nib combination which I mentioned, which is the extra fine, fine, and medium. It's only in places like the UK where you can get the Lamy 2000 with a few other more interesting nib choices, like the broads, the oblique nibs, the double broads, and so on, right? And if you were contemplating buying a Lamy 2000, I would probably tell you to look at the UK and look at Europe, because it's probably the cheapest place that you can get a brand new Lamy 2000. So I've been hesitating to get a Lamy 2000 myself in my collection, just for that reason, that this pen is pretty expensive here in Singapore. And that's in comparison with the Custom Heritage 92, which you can pick up for about like the less than $150 mark. So a little bit about this pen. I'll be honest, I don't really watch fountain pen videos myself on the internet, or even read the reviews of the internet. However, the Lamy 2000 video was probably one of the first that I've watched in the past, and this was actually by pretty famous fountain pen reviewers like Stephen Brown and so on. And it's remarkable that across all the videos which are out there, I'll kind of hazard a guess that nobody says anything bad about the Lamy 2000, right? Everyone loves this pen, and they always describe this pen with the very kind of cliched terms. I'm not going to mention those terms, but basically it has a design which is very classic, and it kind of has that very Germanic design philosophy in there. However, not many people actually say anything else, but it's a great pen. Get it. There's not many options, as you probably would know based on my introduction earlier on. I I have a little bit of a differing view. Basically, and I'll kind of add that at the end of the video today. But I'll just kind of get the facts out there first of all. Right, I'll put the dimensions of the pen down there on the video. Basically, the major dimensions which I'm always interested in would be dimensions of the pen when it's unposted and in the hand. And the other very important dimension for me is basically the diameter of the section when you're holding it. So those two dimensions are 12.4 centimeters from point of the nib to the back of the pen. The other very important dimension I mentioned was where I hold the pen. I actually hold the pen naturally where the alloy piece section ends and when the Makrolon section begins. So at that particular point, it's about 12.5 millimeters. And as most of you know, that's pretty much an ideal section diameter, right? At least it's very comfortable for me. And I can see why a lot of people would say that this pen is a pen that they can write for a long time with without getting fatigued. The pen has a hooded nib, right, which is nice. And the other thing that's important to mention is the fact that one of the other reasons why I hesitated to get this pen was because I was worried whether or not the pen would be slippery to hold at this area down here. And I'll be very honest with you, it is very slippery if you tend to hold the pen close to the nib. So if I hold the pen here during the metal portions of the section, it basically wants to slip. My fingers want to slip all the way to the front, right? You won't have this problem, or at least I don't face the problem if I hold the pen further back at this plastic Makrolon or the black polycarbonate area of the pen. I hold the pen, like I mentioned, at the intersection of these two surfaces, which is why I think kind of have a hold of this pen in the shop if you're contemplating buying it. If you tend to be a close nib, to hold the pen very close to the nib, it might be slippery. It's very important to kind of take note of. Other characteristics about this pen of note is this pen, which I bought, I didn't buy it new. I bought it used for fairly good price. And when I got it, I'm not sure how old this pen is, but it was described to me to have scratches and cracks and so on. If I look closely, I can see some scratches and cracks at this ink window area. I'm not sure whether it will come up. It might come up on the video. The other thing that my pen has in terms of defects is actually some kind of nick marks at the alloy section down here. You might be able to make that out as well. Besides that, there's nothing about this pen actually. Okay, maybe the clip also has a little bit of kind of pitting and scratches, right? But besides those three things, my guess is my particular pen is a pretty old pen, and yet it doesn't look old, right? It resists wear, at least from what I know, and that's actually a good thing. That if you're thinking of buying this pen, you're actually buying a pen that is relatively reliable, right? So that's the other point that I want to make. When I filled up this pen, I actually used my own. It's not ketchup that I filled it up with, but basically I used my own mixture of ink. I think I mixed Rohrer and Klinger verdigris with some other ink color, which I cannot remember. And when I was doing all the ink filling using the piston mechanism, of course I flushed the pen before I did any of that. The pen drew in ink very, very well. Right, it probably drew in ink as good or as better than the Custom Heritage 92, right? And I'm not saying that pens like the Twisby Eco, I'm not saying that those pens actually don't draw in, or other piston fillers don't draw in ink as well, but that was the thing that I noted, that the drawing of ink into this particular pen was very, very easy and very efficient. Just one twist of the piston knob, which is kind of hidden at the back down here. You just turn this piece. It is very sensitive for my pen. If I just kind of twist this slightly, you can kind of see the crack emerging. But you know, the moment I twist the piston filler a little bit, ink will start gushing out, which happened to me the other day. And you know, it's a pretty good piston mechanism which is being used. Obviously, the whole pen can be disassembled by unscrewing this part of the section, and by kind of overturning or over unscrewing the piston mechanism down here, and the whole pen can be taken apart for cleaning. However, for my particular pen, it wasn't so easy to do so for some reason. This part of the pen seems to be locked. I tried to twist with quite a lot of strength, and it didn't actually do anything. So, not my usual pen review, but hope you got some insights from that. I'm just going to do a little bit of writing right now with my pen to kind of show you some characteristics of this particular nib. Again, I'm not sure whether any work was done for this nib in the past. When I bought it, it was advertised as a medium nib. However, Lamy medium nibs, or at least mine, has that a little bit of that stub quality. Right? I'm not sure whether you'll be able to note. By the way, that's the ink. That hole there is actually the place where the ink is actually inhaled. So I'm using my Lamy, my Hurlitz X-Book pad, and this is the Lamy 2000, and it's in medium, and I would say it's a decent medium, right? I don't dare to actually press the nib very hard, but there isn't much line variation, at least for my particular pen. The other thing to take note of, it's pretty wet. It is a pretty wet pen. And you notice that I've actually kept the pen uncapped for quite a while, right? So that's the advantage of the hooded nib, that it doesn't really dry out that often, right? So the pen actually has a very smooth nib. I think it's the consequence of how Lamy actually produces their nib. It's super smooth. With very little pressure, you know, you can actually form a line down here. And generally, it's a very enjoyable nib to use. I can understand why people mention there's a sweet spot. So when people mention that's a sweet spot in their Lamy Lamy 2000, is the pen doesn't really write very well at certain angles. Like for example, if I hold the pen really pretty vertical, right, it doesn't write. There's no ink that comes out, but the ink will come out at the correct writing angle. Probably the same for here, right? If I do it like so, ink's not going to come out, right? But when I hold it at here, ink will come out. So when people mention the angle of the writing angle of a Lamy 2000 and the sweet spot, they are actually referring to the height at which you hold the pen. I mean, obviously this will not write, right? No, it does write, but if I put pressure on it, or side to side, right? But if you're using the normal writing angle, right, there's no problem, right, basically with writing with this pen, right? I can see where some people would actually say that it has a small sweet spot, but for me it's totally not a problem at all. So this is a very quick initial look at the Lamy 2000. I know I always say that I'm going to do comparisons, and I'm pretty bad at following up with those promises, but just, I might compare this pen with the other pen that I have that's a 14 karat nib piston filler, and that's the Custom Heritage 92. And if you look at the pens side by side, the dimensions are pretty similar. Even when uncapped, by the way, the Lamy 2000 actually has a snap cap, which snaps pretty securely, and it's very satisfying. It does post as well, right? So that's another thing. It posts pretty smoothly, right? And it won't affect the piston mechanism if you twist, twist the pen here. Actually, it does. The piston actually came out down there, but basically, if you just compare the dimensions, it's pretty similar to the Custom Heritage 92, right? So like I mentioned, if I have time and if most of you request it, I might do a comparison of these two pens. Like I mentioned, I do not have the M400 by Pelikan, so I can't actually compare that particular pen. But look for that if I produce that in the future. In the meantime, the question which I actually wrote in the title of this video, which was, should you buy a Lamy 2000 in the year 2022? Right? I mean, the answer to me is pretty simple. It is a pretty unique pen in terms of the design. If you can get one and at a particular price that you are happy with, I would say if you're buying something like this at the $150 mark, definitely go for it. The other thing to take note of is, like I mentioned, whether or not you can tolerate the shiny area, I mean the slippery area down here. And the last thing I would say is buy this pen if you don't mind very wet writing pens, right? And obviously the last thing is that if you want to have a specialty nib, like one of those oblique nibs, like the oblique broads and oblique mediums, Lamy is one of the last few manufacturers that actually produces and one of those specialty nibs, kind of from the factory, right? So that's another consideration for you if you're looking at the Lamy 2000. So pretty long video today. I hope you found it useful and you learned something from it. Let me know if you have any comments, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.